prioritization is a big thing, right? Like, product managers are ruthless prioritizers, right? They don't have all the resources to prioritize things they want to do, for that quarter. So it's always,
Right.
you being very particular on what you pick, and, also where you divert the team's efforts towards.
Sometimes the loudest person in the room gets the charge of the product, and it does not necessarily make a business case.
I totally agree. Enterprise would never come and say, hey, okay, I saw this product, I'm just going to continue to use it. They might probably have someone try out a couple of features, but at the end of the day, sales have to drive some conversations, put everything together.
How much more weightage you would give to the customer versus your internal team, and they will give some numbers.
Were you able to implement this framework at your company or any other companies, and were you able to see any great results there?
Hello, everybody. Today we had a very interesting episode with Anup Sheshadri. So Anup Sheshadri is the head of growth and product for Rout Spring. So Rout Spring is a rapidly evolving startup revolutionizing business travel. So we went into details of how prioritization is important, very important for product managers. We went into details of the RISE framework and also the SU RISE framework, which was built on top of the RISE framework. And it actually adds variables like source and user persona on top of the RISE framework. And this was developed by none other than Anup Sheshadri. So we also went into some of the books which Anup has written. So one of the book is Building a Career in Product Management, and the second book is Prioritization. Along with this, we also explored some of the growth strategies which has led to Rout Spring's rapid growth, and also some of the experiments. So please do check out today's episode to dwell into some of the details which we have discussed now. Thank you. So Anup Sheshadri, why don't you please do a quick introduction about yourself?
Sure. First of all, like Sid and Phani, happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me over this podcast. Big background about myself. Like I am currently the head of product at Rout Spring. It is one of the fastest growing business travel management software company. Before that, I used to be a mining engineer back in India. I did my BTech in mining engineering from IIT Varanasi. Um, so it doesn't look like a trivial path to product management, but that was a transition I made. I came for an MBA in US and then jumped into a product management role.
Awesome, and that's the trend to product management, right? You see people from different walks of life come into product management, and that's pretty diverse challenge.
Yeah.
So thanks for the great introduction, Anup. There. So quickly, right? Like in product management, right? Prioritization is a big thing, right? Like product managers are ruthless prioritizers, right? They don't have all the resources to prioritize things they want to do, for that quarter. So it's always
Right.
you being very particular on what you pick, and also where you divert the team's efforts towards. So why don't we start with that quick question of how important is it for prioritization for product managers, and can you go into details of certain framework and all, and then we can maybe also go into the framework which you developed and all that information.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It comes from my personal experience. Like prioritization really becomes like really tough. So when I started as a product manager, I was hired as a product manager in a very early stage startup. And as a startup, you really need to focus on what's the priority, business priority, right? Because you are a lot resource constrained than a big organization. You cannot take chances on just waiting things to be done or waiting things to be picked up, because if you happen to pick a wrong thing at a wrong time, then you are just delaying your whole success path for the company, right? And I made few mistakes in my early time in my product management career. Like I thought that I should be starting on something, and I kind of gave a go ahead for the engineering team that let's build this, and then I did not know how to scope the project. I did not know how to prioritize some of the features or functionalities that we wanted to build, and I made few mistakes there. And it so happened that instead of that project closing in like few weeks, it just dragged to a couple of months, and then we missed the opportunity of working on some of the crucial things which could have helped win some of the promising prospects, right? And that was a very costly mistake in an early career, in my early career as a product management. So that kind of really like struck me that I need to be very cautious on what things I put onto the development plan for the engineering team or for a designer to work on and things like that. Many a times, like you put things on the designer's plate, but then the engineers are not yet ready to pick that up, and the designer may be putting in a lot of effort to create those designs, but then engineers don't have focus on getting those designs implemented and all that. So mistakes can happen at many different ways, and that's when I realized that I need a good prioritization framework in place. And oftentimes working in a early stage startup as well, sometimes it so happens that the founders uh, they overpower the discussions, right? Because it's their idea, it's their baby that they are trying to develop, right? So they end up being the loudest person in the room, and you just have to then go by whosoever is the loudest person. So uh, how can we objectively decide and not just have the loudest person sway the product decisions, right? So that's how critical it can be. You want to be cautious on the resources you have. You want to be cautious on what opportunities lie in front of you, and uh, that's how the prioritization helps you navigate through these complexities and make sure that things are progressing in the right direction and not just in a random direction, right? So I think that's
Yeah,
very crucial as a product manager.
that's right. And I see that, right, like a lot of teams might not use prioritization and some use, but don't completely follow it because there might be a lot of constraints in the prioritization framework which people use. But
Yeah.
and also, right, there's like a lot of variables as you're talking about, right? It depends on the stage of the product, and also, you know, the goals, the company goals, and where is the company heading that for that quarter or that year, and you know, how do you also embed some of those things into some of the prioritization frameworks. And also I like the way which you know, I went through some of the videos which you put on YouTube on your prioritization framework and how is it different and all of that stuff. So can you talk about that story, right? I you know, you previously mentioned, you know, saying that you created a post and then it got popular and all. Kind of walk us through that story and also explain people on what the framework is, how is it different from the regular frameworks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I was playing around a lot in what would be the best way to prioritize. So I was I read a lot of product management books as well to help me understand what this role really means. So in my early stage in the career, I read a lot of books, Sprint, Lean Product Management, Hooked, obviously awesome, and all those things that can give you like a holistic view of what the product really means. And then I was really focused on like the prioritization sides. So I tried a couple of frameworks, and I created one of my own like 3D 3 dimensional prioritization framework, which did not. I mean, I gave up that model very quickly. Within a couple of months, I realized that this is not the model that I want to use. Uh, and then I switched to Rice model, uh, which was created by Intercom for their internal prioritization. And that model kind of struck me that it kind of made some logical sense on how you can think of some of the functionalities that you want to work on, some of the projects that you want to work on the product and all that. So that kind of intrigued me. But for some people who don't know the RISE framework, it is reach, impact, confidence, and effort. So you basically try to evaluate what kind of business impact you can create with uh, per effort that you put into building that functionality and all. right? So reach is what is the magnitude of your reach to the target audience. Impact is how much impact do you anticipate in that, and confidence is how much confidence you have in building this. So if you have less than 50% confidence, then you shouldn't be working on that functionality. So the goal here would be that at least you have 50% confidence in whatever ideas you present on the product roadmap. But then there were few things missing here, right? So like I mentioned, like the sometimes the loudest person in the room gets the charge of the product, and it does not necessarily make a business case. So how will you make sure that you avoid that mistake, right? You do not want to just follow because the founders are saying that, or someone who is from the sales, not just necessarily founders, but even like sales team can overpower the decisions too, because they might say that this is a very big opportunity we have, we should be building this, 5 of such customers are requesting it, and we definitely need to have this feature or whatever. So sales can also be the loudest person, but you don't want to lose the overall focus on where the company wants to go, where your product wants to go. So I decided to bring in the source of that feature idea or feature request into consideration as well. So that way I am accounting for from where this is coming from. Like, is this coming from internal teams? Is this coming from like a competition because the competition is building some functionality and we think it might be a cool idea for us to build, or it is coming from a prospect or an existing customer? Because those all things can define what you want to do. So if you are trying to optimize for customer acquisition, you may want to listen more to the prospects, for example, because that is for acquisition. You want to listen to who can be your potential customers, right? So what are the things that they are demanding? If you find any commonalities or trends in that, then you can put higher weightage to things coming from prospects compared to things coming from internal customers or internal teams. If you're working on optimizing for retention, then you want to listen to your existing customers more, because you want to retain them and you want to fulfill their requirements as much as you can, right? And as you get to the maturity level, you may want to just this can be part of like retention process, but then you also want to be watchful of what competition is doing, and you want to stay competitive in the market, and you may put more weightage on how the competition, what kind of functionalities they are building, and you want to bring that in. So source of an idea uh, started to make a lot of sense for me, because that will help me in understanding, am I listening to the right audience for this functionality or not. So I can just shut down someone who is saying that, okay, I have this brilliant idea. Okay, it's a brilliant idea, but prospects are not asking it if I'm trying to optimize it for acquisition. Right? So source became important. And then the second thing I came up with was the user persona, because I am still working in a B2B SaaS product, and SaaS products can tend to be a lot complex. There are many user roles. There are many different decision-making processes that are involved in making that purchase, right? Why would a particular company use your product versus something else, right? So user persona can also play a crucial role. There are some who are just the end users, right? And the end users may not participate into the decision-making process, and decision-making process can involve some of the complex things. Like in our case, like in a business travel management software, the finance team is usually the decision maker. Finance head of finance or head of accounting typically tend to be the decision makers. So they want to look at like, what kind of finance problems do you solve for me? Travel it's secondary. I want travel to happen through the Rout Spring platform, but I want to mainly make sure that it solves my finance operations within the Rout Spring platform.
Mhm.
So we can prioritize that user role higher than the traveler himself themselves. Like we operate in a travel industry, but as you can relate from this example, the traveler is just required to book travel, but they don't participate in the other functionalities that the company's internal admin team has to suffer through because the travel happens within the company. So then we are able to prioritize such user roles who have higher power in the business. Right? They are able to decide whether we are going to use Route Spring or not. We can do endless optimization in travel booking process or traveler notifications or something like that, right? There are so many things that we can do. We can improve the flight shopping. We can improve hotel shopping experience, car booking shopping experience, or connect with more suppliers to give like a better inventory for the travelers to shop for. Uh, ability to give them premium seats and or whatnot. So we can definitely choose to focus on optimizing for travelers. But
Whichever customer you choose, right? Yeah.
exactly,
So I have a quick, like, just a follow up, right? Like, so normally Rice is more on the lines of reach, impact, confidence, effort, but it doesn't capture, all of the different sources these different feature requests or problems you're trying to address are coming from. So what you're saying is you're basically layering the source on top of this, and the source can be important or have a different weightage based on the goal of the product or the stage of the product, where maybe at some point, right, you might want your priority is activation, and maybe listening to people who are actually, even before the journey of activation, right, what is important for them to sign up is something which you want to prioritize rather than
right?
people who are already using it. So you're saying that you're prioritizing based on that. And the second layer on top of it would be the persona, is right, like what the persona, there could be multiple different personas in your product itself, and you're basically picking the persona which is important for that stage of the or that quarter of the product, right? Awesome. Please go ahead.
Correct. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's head on. Like you kind of reiterated it very well. So that's the main goal. Like so you build. I mean, this framework, I call it SU Rice framework. So it is kind of built on the Rice framework. Uh, there are two more parameters that I started considering in that is the source and the user persona, so that then we know that what are we focusing on. Are we focusing on some of the functionalities that just the end user is demanding, or someone who has really high power in adoption is uh, influencing any of the product decisions, right?
Actually, that's wonderful, Anup. I mean, as product managers, right, we keep struggling. We keep struggling to like eliminate things. So I see it this way, right? Prioritization typically helps in like, hey, I have 20 different requests that I came from different places. Out of those, what are the ones which are the most impactful ones? Let me take that, and Rice or any other frameworks help that. And as we talk through, right, one thing that made me realize is adding those additional SNU, which is the source and the user, can help us eliminate things. So, for example,
Exactly.
let's say your sales manager or your customer success manager came and told you, "Hey, this is the biggest thing that I heard from different people," or "I have this excellent idea." Could be I can put that in the lower priority to say, "Hey, this came from one source rather than an actual user." Or I also work for a SaaS company, so I can definitely see that as well. Like when we build a feature, it could be used by like multiple folks. It could be your internal ops folks, it could be external customers,
Correct.
or within the external customers itself, other folks. So do you see that as well? Like, do you
Correct.
see that as an elimination process more than like thinking of the top ones?
Yeah, I think it is both. You want to know what you don't want to focus on, and you also want to know what you want to focus on. So it's uh, uh, It's definitely, yeah, one way or the other, if you look at it, that it is also an elimination process, because there are so many things that really come in the way for the product manager to decide. And you can say that, okay, most of the things you are going to eliminate basically, and there are just top 5 things or 10 things that you might be thinking right now that you can plan for the next quarter or next year. Not all the things you will put on the roadmap.
Do you have weightage for the different sources you have, right, for all of the prioritization you do, like, and does that change by some set of an important scale?
Yeah. So the weightage that you decide, when I typically look at the historic data and then try to extrapolate from that, like what weightage should I put in? And also, if I don't have the historic data, which was very true in the early stages when I started adopting this framework, I did not know where to start. So I sat down with the team and just asked them questions like, let's say I put down like 5 sources, like how would you rate uh, like a prospects over how many times more weightage you would give to prospect versus an existing customer, and they will give some number. Then I will ask like, okay, how much more weightage you would give to the customer versus your internal team, and they will give some numbers, and then work it out something that which can uh, present that you can say hypothetical weightage, and then you can see if it is making sense to the team or not. If it makes sense, then you are in the right spot. Um, and you might still, I mean, to be frank, it's just an framework, right? It is not a science basically, it's an art. So going to your point, Funny, basically, yeah, you are in some ways you're right that it is process of elimination, right? So there are a few things that will show up on the top, and then you may have to think through, does this really make sense or not for the business? uh, and then if your gut says otherwise, then you reevaluate like the weightage that you have given, or maybe the parameters that you have given, impact, reach, impact, and confidence. Maybe you can evaluate those, like maybe you don't think those are accurate uh, assumptions to make for that particular functionality. um, so yeah, that's the process I went through, and now I have some historic data to use. So with that historic data, I can put on some weights, and then I'm again eliminating that subjectiveness to the weights. I'm trying to make it more objective by looking at historic data. Okay, this is what means to focus on a prospect, and this is what means to focus on existing customers or internal teams or support.
I
So
actually
you're
love
saying
the
that
thought
as
process, Anup.
any framework, it is more like you'll know once you start applying it, and you'll know and understand or better apply
Correct.
it and better score it
Yeah.
based on your previous experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually have one thought there, right? So I'm going to add this flavor here. So enterprise versus SMB. So this is a constant struggle that I go through as well, because as a SaaS product, you could give this to a smaller company versus targeting a way bigger company. So I
Yeah.
keep going to that struggle as well, because I have customer success teams who solely focus on enterprise. I have success teams who are focused on small businesses, but their revenue is like way more minimal. So at that point, I keep struggling to say, hey, should I cater to the small business customer who is existing customer, or
Right.
should I be focusing on a prospect enterprise customer who might be coming to me in the next 6 months, but their revenue would be huge? So adding that flavor there would actually
Yeah.
help me think through that prioritization.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you
And
one more question in terms of the usage? Like, were you able to implement this framework at your company or any other companies, and were you able to see any great results there?
yeah, it definitely helps. It aligns the team in a right direction. So uh, you are not wasting time on building things that are not going to be impactful for the business. You are working on things that are going to create an impact for the business. So the conversations, it will help you in having that conversation to make sure that you're aligning all the teams towards the common goal, and not just randomly creating some framework which is not making sense for the team and the company, right? So it's one of the ways to align your team, and it makes sure that your resources are optimally utilized, and you're not. Things might still change. To be honest, I mean, I'm still in a startup world, right? So in a startup, things change very quickly, very fast. So things still change, but overall, it definitely guides the team to know where they are going and why they are doing it, and uh, they can give their more productive time to what are the priorities, not focus on something which is of not a good business priority.
Got it. Actually, one more thought there. I know I would love to implement this framework in my work as well because I keep seeing that pain. Let's take this example, right? Just for everyone to understand and visualize. Let's say I have an enterprise customer success team and I have a small business customer success team. I've got quarterly requests, put the entire list, added all of these details, telling that, hey, these top 5 requests are coming from enterprise, these 5 requests are coming from SMBs. How do I rate it? Because customer success from enterprise might give a different weight to it than a customer success from SMBs. How do you go with that struggle of like rating it or like putting a number on it?
Yeah, so it will all impact in the reach, I would say. At least for our business, it impacts the reach. So if it's an enterprise customer, it is going to impact the reach weightage, whatever you have, right? So you can use that as a mode of like, if it is a small company, you will not going to achieve that much reach. If you're focusing on bigger companies who have many more users compared to the smaller companies, then reach is the way that you can eliminate some of the prioritizations like that. And uh, uh, if you want, you can have like a different categories within source as well, whether this source is coming from a SMB or an enterprise customer. And then you may have different weightage based on that too. But I wouldn't say that you need unnecessarily want to complicate the source, but this can be taken into account in the reach itself. So in enterprise, you will have more customers, more users, more users who will be using that functionality compared to an SMB. That will have its own impact on the score that you get out of it.
We went through the frameworks, and definitely we added a extra layer on top of it, right? Like on how easy is it for prioritization, and also the extra variables what product managers can use. So I know that you also have released a book on top of it, right? And you have already another book which you have written. So can you maybe walk us through like what these books are and what was your journey writing a book?
Yeah. So like I started when in this product management career. Before I landed this job, I was actually working on my own, trying to build my own business, and I had like very ambitious goals there, and I was probably over ambitious and did not really account for some of the things that could fail the overall business idea that I had, and I actually failed. Uh, Instead of using the word failure, I will say I did not succeed, basically.
Or you
Like,
learned from the failure?
Yeah.
yeah, correct. So, that entrepreneurial experience taught me many things, and it helped me get focused on um, the what mistakes I did and what kind of learnings I got from that. And when I joined this product management role, I mainly got this because of my entrepreneurial spirit. Like, okay, this guy seems to be entrepreneurial and seems to be product focused, customer focused, experienced focused, and that's how when I talked to this person, I went to him as an investor. I needed more funds to survive the business idea that I had, and he ended up, instead of investing, he ended up hiring me. Uh, and I gave up the things that I was working on. Uh, I wish I did not give up, but sometimes I feel that was the right decision I made, for good or bad. Uh, and when I landed this job, I really got the flavor of product manager, and not from a like an entrepreneurial perspective, but from like a product perspective. You sometimes you it's good to step down a little bit, because when I was working as an entrepreneur, I was thinking more from like just the entrepreneurship side, and I did not focus much on the product, and probably that was the reason that why I did not succeed there. And no one was there to teach me in that entrepreneurship, like what you should do, how you should build the product, how you can go to the market, what kind of product decisions you can make, and all that. So by becoming product manager, I started to get that experience to work on a product and not on a business. And that helped me a lot to see from a business perspective as well, like how what things could I have done differently to be successful entrepreneur in the product, right? Uh, so I started reading a lot of books. I started getting intrigued by this role, and I started reading many books, and I started jotting down some of my experiences on all different fronts. And as a product manager in an early stage business, I was sometimes playing a role of a customer success manager, sometimes of an account manager, or a customer support team member, uh, and all those things. Like so, I was playing many different roles, and I was able to see the product from many different angles and all. And I started documenting all these things, and I started getting some good feedback from the readers. Like they liked what they read and all those things. And then I thought, let's write a book. To be frank, I'm not as diligent writer as probably you are, Sid or Phani. I am very sporadic. I just sometimes I will randomly think of something and I will start writing things. It's like that. So it wasn't like a discipline I followed, but I just started whenever I felt like writing. I just wrote down some of the things. And first book that I wrote was on building a career in product management. The main theme of that was: is there a logical path for becoming a successful product manager? Right. That was the question many people ask. Like, how can I become a product manager? Uh, many prospective product managers used to ask, like, how can I become a product manager? And people from many different fields would ask this question. I am coming from a non-technical background. Can I be successful in this role? I'm coming from a UI UX design background. Can I become a successful product manager or not? So my answer to them was that even I started from a non-technical. I started as a mining engineer in my career, professional career, and then I transitioned to become an entrepreneur and then to product manager. So if you see, you may seem that probably there is not a logical path here. You can just do anything and then you become a product manager. There's no logical path here. But if you really look at my history, like the things that I did as a undergrad student or at work, and the things that I started to put into practice and all those small things help you build a skill set, both hard and soft skill set, to be successful in a product management role. So my first book really talks about that, building a career in product management, and finding your own logical path to success. There is no one path. It's not like becoming a mechanical engineer or becoming a electrical engineer or a lawyer or a doctor. There are many different paths that you can take, but there are some key things that you need to be focused on. So that book talks about that. And before I actually wrote this book, Building Career in Product Management, I was writing about prioritization too. And can you still hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. All right. My AirPods probably died. Yeah. So before I actually wrote the this book, Building Career in Product Management, I was writing blogs, and I wrote on product prioritization. First, I wrote about 3D product prioritization. It did not really, and I myself gave up on that model very quickly. And then I came up with this SU Rise framework. Uh, and that blog post actually became a lot more successful than I personally thought would become. Uh, and that motivated me to like do more about that content. So after I wrote this blog, I created YouTube videos about that to like to get to the viewership from a different channel. And then I thought I would write a book as well. Like there is another channel to get an audience who can benefit from it. So I now have a book too for this. So that's the path to launching the two books. But yeah, I mean there was no discipline there. It was just I just played along, and I saw that prioritization framework was well received by the viewers, and then I'm just adopting different channels to reach different audience. I was initially thinking to just keep it like very like basic, like a PDF circulation, but then I thought like maybe not. I want to know who my audience is, right? If I just circulate it as a PDF, I would not know who my audience is. So it is available on Amazon Kindle, and I am thinking of launching this book on some other medias as well. I think my first book is available on Apple Books,
Okay.
again in a
Okay.
digital form. I haven't created a print version of this yet. We'll see how this performs, and then I might go for print version too.
Yeah. So I know, Anup, you're very modest in telling that, hey, I didn't follow a process, but honestly, I love the way you went through it, right? Because you had an idea, you wrote a blog post. The blog post was good, like a lot of people loved it. Then you took that idea and you made it even more bigger by writing a book. I'm sure you would have gone through some process, like you would have talked to people, gathered some feedback, and then you went about writing a book. The book writing process itself would have taught you so much. Now you're thinking about additional steps and taking to multiple channels. So that in itself, I see a strong product management thought process there, right? You have an idea, you did a pilot. After you did the pilot, got some feedback. After the feedback, you actually implemented the product, which is the book here. And then after the book is implemented, now you're expanding it to different channels.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the product management thought process that goes into it. You launch an MVP, and then you see what how it succeeds, and then just build on that. Maybe kind of the same process I'm following up here.
Yep, absolutely. Um, Probably a follow-up question on that, right? We are, if I take about myself, Sidhu or Srinath or any of a bunch of my friends, right? We are all content creators. We would love to do things in this way, and we have been trying to do the same in the product management channel. What was the biggest thing that made you write a book despite all the other things, like making a YouTube video or writing blog code, etc.? What made you think that bigger step of writing a book?
I think writing comes more naturally to me than creating videos. And I did try having my own podcast too. But I think I did like 4 or 5 interviews, and then I thought it is a lot of work to run a podcast. And I actually stopped running that podcast, and I thought like let me focus just on writing. That comes more naturally to me, and that is where I kind of feel a little bit more comfortable. So I stuck to writing only, and the YouTube videos also that I created for my prioritization framework, those were also like I had to go through like a lot of admin work to create those videos and post them. It was a lot of work. So I think it's not in me to create videos and all. Writing comes more naturally to me. So that's how I'm sticking to writing more than videos or something else.
Recording videos, we struggled a lot too in the starting days. We used to do so many redos and editing and all of that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. There is a lot of work. I mean, it's hard to see. I mean, for the people, I mean, probably the audience here who is not familiar what goes behind the scenes to create a podcast, it's a lot. It's a lot of work to release, and just one podcast, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, and
So yeah,
hopefully we are moved across that hurdle, and now we have a good system in place. At least it's we are not spending hours and hours together to do something. But yeah, yeah.
great.
So Anup, just switching gears, right? So I know you work for a company, it's a travel company, Rout Spring, right? So and you basically do a lot of product led growth and also. Can you maybe throw some light on what the company does and what is your approach for growth and product led growth there?
Yeah. Product-led growth is also another interesting topic. I think I'm gonna find time to write more about that too, sometime soon. That's the new topic that I'm kind of considering to write. But yeah, about the company. So the Rout Spring started in 2020, and we did not know pandemic is gonna hit us. So we started in a challenging time. We started, kicked off the business, and then we were hit by pandemic, so the whole travel was like absolutely down. So the first year was a very challenging time. And since you talked about product led growth, actually that was the time we decided that we should adopt product led growth during the pandemic, because the traditional sales model started failing during the pandemic, right? Because nobody is in the office, so if the numbers you are dialing, nobody is there to pick them up, and the emails that you are emailing to, those employees no longer exist in the same company. They either got laid off or they switched to a different role. So whatever sales outreach database we had, very immediately it became obsolete, and it was a very big challenge during that time to sustain, right when we started. So should we just close down and find ourselves a different career or something? That is what we were thinking about. But then we thought that the product was still in the early stages, right? I mean, it was pretty much bare bones. There was just basic functionality for the companies to use, like just create travel policies, just book travel, but not really a lot that they can do in the product during that time. It was just a start, basically. So when we decided that we will open the product for the companies to sign up and just play around on their own, because it was hard for us to reach the market during the pandemic. We did not know if anybody is traveling, and if we are reaching out to, they are not getting back to us, so they probably are not in the company whom we were targeting earlier. So the dynamics completely changed, and we just thought that opening up the product signups for the prospects will probably help us at least increase some of the inbound flow. And we were very cautious in the beginning. We were very nervous too, because like I said, product was really bare bones. And if someone signs up and they find the product is not at all worth it, they will just walk off and they will not even talk to us. And we wanted an opportunity for someone to talk to us, give us feedback, and then we will build on that. We can set the expectations with the prospect that, okay, these are the things that you are demanding, we will build for you. It may take 3 months or 6 months, whatever. We can commit to them and keep them engaged with us. So we were nervous, but fortunately, to our surprise, like people who are really looking for some solution, they are also willing to share the feedback. Now, it is true that not everybody will share the feedback, but people who are really interested in finding a solution similar to what you are promising them, then they are willing to engage with you. They are willing to share what they are looking for, and they are willing to spend more time with you, and then be patient as you are building things, right? So uh, all the nervousness that we had actually turned into an opportunity for us to build the product that the market is demanding right now during the pandemic, right? So with the product led growth, I mean, I will say it was like a very small part of product led growth model that we adopted, like a sign up, just a sign up, the onboarding process and all. It was, I mean, it is still an early stage product, so it was there was not a lot that we did in the onboarding side, but that really helped us open the door for opportunities. I think we set some goal for ourselves, like I think we decided if we get 3 signups in the first month, then we will say that this is the model that we want to adopt. But we in fact got more than 3 signups in the first month itself. We got 15 or something signups in the first month itself. So we were like very wowed by the simple performance. It's not a big number, but during the pandemic when nobody is traveling and you are still getting 15 signups, so that's a signal that there is still a demand in the market. It is not stand still, and that kind of proved our hypothesis that there is still a demand in the market. And rest is the history. Like, I mean, we build on that. We continued to increase our signups. We continued to build functionalities. We build things that were relevant to the current market trends and all that. And we are successful now. I mean, we from 2020 we almost had no one traveling with us, almost none. 21 was still lots of ups and downs because of different COVID variants that came and hit our societies. So travel was not still in like a steady pace or whatever. 2022, the start of the 2022 was challenging because of the Omicron, but then at the end of the year things started to improve, and 2023 is it's excellent for us right now for the small scale where we are operating. It's a lot of growth that we have achieved in the 2023.
I have a question there, Anup. So it's a good segue, right? So a lot of companies are struggling to get back to the original model pre-pandemic, or they're struggling to find the balance between a product-led growth versus a sales-led growth. So in this current market or going into 2024, right? What would you suggest or what would you recommend to companies who are trying to do this or trying to understand this model?
Yeah, I think sales-led model is a choice, and it depends like which segment you are focusing on. If you are focusing on like enterprise segment or a higher market segment, then it cannot be purely product-led model. There has to be some sales-assisted model there. So you cannot uh, just leave it onto the product and just have the enterprise customers do their own thing, because the enterprise buying behavior is a lot different than the smaller businesses. Smaller businesses, they don't go through like a procurement process. uh, they will sign up and they will just internally add few of their other employees, colleagues, test the platform out, and then they will just start using it. When you're talking about enterprise, uh, they have a lot more things to validate before they even uh, purchase the license for you. So in that, you need some sales-led model. You cannot skip that. So it depends on what segment your business is focused on or your product is focused on. If you're focusing on like if it's like a consumer product or if it's like a small business product, then product-led growth model can survive. But if you are moving up the market, serving slightly bigger customers and all, you cannot avoid sales-led model. You will need to have that sales-led model.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, finding that balance is very
And
important. I totally agree. Enterprise would never come and say, "Hey, okay, I saw this product. I'm just gonna continue to use it." They might probably have someone try out a couple of features, but at the end of the day, sales have to drive some conversations, put everything together. Cool.
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
and any like the strategies which you are using, right? Like how was the difference in the numbers of signups or the revenue? Like what was the boost in all of the strategies or growth hacks which you used?
Yeah. So uh, for the product-led growth to succeed, you also have to focus on the organic growth. more than anything else, right? You can spend money on advertising and all that to increase the traffic and all, but it is more of the organic growth that you need to focus on, because people should discover your product, your website, or the things that you want to solve. So how are people discovering your product similar to yours? So you can do like a simple Google search. You can start with a simple internet search, Google, Bing, or whatever is your preferred search engine. You can start with that and see like how someone can discover your product. So no one will just directly know Route Spring, right? They will need some reference from somewhere to know what is Route Spring. So they will maybe search like travel management softwares, or they will search like top 5 travel management softwares, and things like that. So improving the organic presence was a priority in the beginning. So we took some of the strategies, like what are the top ranked pages that we are seeing in the travel management space, see what kind of content they have and all that, and then we started building the content on our side. So the one thing that we saw is like boosting the organic traffic that we had. We were also doing our email outreach campaign as well, a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit, because it's a low cost model. Working in a startup, you also have to be sensitive of how much marketing dollars you are spending and what kind of returns you are getting too. So you run a lot of small experiments and see if you're getting returns or not. So we figured that the review sites play a crucial role in a trial management space, B2B review sites, and email campaigns can be relatively cheaper to operate. Uh, it's a branding. We also tried Google Ads, but that was just draining the cash way too fast than we wanted. Maybe I would blame it to COVID as well a little bit, because nobody was really shopping that much, and Google was expensive during the COVID times too. So we ended up spending more there. So coming like to your point, like what kind of growth we started to see. So we took this approach more focused towards like organic growth, and we are still very much focused on organic growth. And 2020 2021 was, I will not count as like a for the growth, because nothing really was happening during those 2 years. Compared to last year, this year we are 5 times bigger than what we were last year, and you can see it in any different way. Number of bookings that we are doing, or number of users that we have, active users we have on a platform, or the revenue. So in all fronts we have grew, and 5 times I'm measuring from the number of booking side, because we are a travel platform, travel management platform. So that's a good way of measuring that how many people are using us. So we see the increase in number of bookings in our platform 5 times higher than what it was last year.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think couple of points, right? So product-led growth is always might not be the only solution, right? There are different strategies which you follow. It's a mix always, and also, you know, majority when you take product-led growth and invest more on the product and the usability of the product and the value you provide, you'll see that growth as you go ahead.
No, this is awesome, Anup. So before we wrap up, right, there's a couple of questions that we ask our guests. Maybe I'll start with the first one. If there is one book that you would recommend, I mean, it doesn't have to be one. If there is more, like, please feel free to. I know you have written a couple of books. We'll add them in the description. If there is one book that is inspired you, or if there is one book that you're currently reading that you can recommend to our audience.
Yeah, I really like the Design of Everyday Things. I'm not sure if you have read it, but it's a wonderful book by Don Norman. Yeah, you have it. Yeah, that's a wonderful book for a product manager to make sure that you are focusing on building features that really have some utility in the market, and you're not just creating random features which become an artifact, right? So I really get inspired by that book. I listened to an audiobook, and then I have read through the book as well. As I like the audio, I read the book too. So it's a
That's
wonderful
awesome.
book. Yeah.
Maybe another thing, right? Like, I don't know if you listen to podcasts avidly. I know you have your podcast as well in the past. If there is one podcast that you would recommend to our audience, what would that be?
Your podcast, right? I mean, it's a good podcast. You're interviewing many different product managers, getting some real experience out of the product managers from different backgrounds and all. So that's definitely there. uh, I don't listen to lot of podcasts, but I have listened to a couple of episodes with you, and I also listened into the Lenny's podcast. I'm not sure if you heard about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But that's a good podcast too.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Anup. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Anup. Thanks for spending time to go through all of the growth, growth strategies, product prioritization, and a couple of all of your experience. And all. Thanks for coming to our podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was nice talking to you both. And yeah, feel free to uh, get in touch for anything new.